Hello and welcome to the first of what will hopefully be an annual video series in which I dole out awards to some of the games I played in the year. Note that I'm merely talking about games I played this year, not necessarily games that released this year. Who am I to give out awards? Well, no one really, but if you're still here, I guess you're interested in my opinion, so let's get started. For the record, here's the full list of games I completed in 2017. By my standards, it's pretty huge. Largely thanks to my rivalry with a friend to see whose list would end up larger. And spoiler alert, it's mine. I spent a lot of the years gaming, either exploring massive worlds or in a borderline psychotic deep dive into the Sonic franchise. It wasn't the most varied year in terms of genre or non-hedgehog protagonists, but overall, I had a pretty good time. But enough preamble, it's time for the arbitrary awards to be given. ADORBS Award! Contrary to what you might expect, the ADORBS Award doesn't go to whichever game has the cutest protagonist or the loveliest music. No, the ADORBS Award goes to the game I most enjoyed playing for its badness, not in spite of it. That's what makes it adorable, like watching The Room or Troll 2. This award very nearly went to Sonic Adventure 2 this year, if only because of voice acting like this.
The professor said his life's work was dedicated to all of those who live down there. He once told that the reason for his existence was making people happy through the power of science.
But ultimately, I settled on Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2. I was in a pretty stressed out place when I played this game, and it was honestly the best comfort food I could hope for. From the slightly off-model graphics to the weirdly realistic martial arts, Budokai 2 is just delightfully quaint in a licensed B-tier sort of way. There's something about watching an anime character perform a realistically rendered spinning back fist. The doubtlessly inaccurate English script is hilarious too. Gosh, you're causing me too much trouble. Agree. This, not from this planet. You come around here often? There are just enough silly quirks in this game to keep you entertained up until the final battle with Kid Buu, who is devilishly hard by the way. Budokai 2 is absolutely a mindless masher, but it's also exactly what I needed at the time. Oh cool, I unlocked a vaccine to nullify the effects of viral heart disease. Well, I guess that's good. Worst Game Award! Speaking of bad games, the Worst Game Award goes to Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Sonic 06 is notorious for being one of the worst big-name video games ever made, so it's no surprise it won this award. What might be surprising is the fact that I already knew of this game's poor reception, purposely sought it out, and played it through to completion with my friend John. In my defense, I've always been extremely curious about Sonic 06. As a kid, I was pretty excited for the game's release. After all, it looked like a true sequel to my then favorite game, Sonic Adventure. But when the abysmal review scores hit, I steered clear. But I always wondered. For over 10 years, I wondered what it would be like to play this game. As it turns out, the answer is horrible. And fascinating. On one hand, the game is so glitchy and broken, it feels more like a beta than a full release. On the other hand, it feels like playing the beta of the cancelled sequel to your favorite game. It was a truly surreal experience. It was also a good bonding experience for me and John. Honestly, I doubt I would have beaten the game without a buddy to tag in and out with. Make no mistake, this game is terrible for all the reasons you've already read online, so I won't waste your time. The Iblis boss battle alone was enough to disqualify it for the ADORBS Award. Sonic 06 is easily the worst game I played this year, but not an experience I regret. Best Multiplayer Award! Switching over to the brighter side for a minute, my pick for Best Multiplayer is a fresh take on familiar gameplay. It's tense, frantic, and crucially, easy for players of all experience levels to pick up and understand. That's right, I'm talking about Puyo Puyo Cross Tetris, the demo version from the Japanese Nintendo Switch eShop. I've always had a sort of detached respect for Tetris and the perfection of its design, but I was never really a big fan. Until now. Something about adding competitive multiplayer totally recontextualizes the whole thing, and now my personal stake in the game of Tetris is through the goddamn roof. But that's only half the experience. The game will switch to a Puyo Puyo match at regular intervals. This feeling of spinning plates makes for a great war on two fronts as you struggle to dominate the overall game. I've yet to purchase the retail product because the demo includes the core multiplayer experience, which is all you really need. Sure, I can't understand the text in the menus, but that's all part of the fun. Some months back, I reunited with a couple friends I hadn't seen in forever, and the first thing we did was jam Puyo Puyo Cross Tetris. I swear, we barely spoke to one another for at least an hour. The game is very deep, but it's an accessible depth. The concepts of risk versus reward and personal composure are so apparent that the barrier to entry is basically non-existent. People who don't even consider themselves gamers will love this game. It was a fantastic way to start off the Nintendo Switch. Surprise Darling Award! If it wasn't already obvious, the Surprise Darling Award goes to the game I ended up loving way more than I would have expected. This year, the honor goes to a modest little game called Emily is Away. It's best experienced completely blind, and it's free on Steam, so if you're interested in the slightest, I'd recommend skipping this segment and playing the game yourself later. Emily is Away takes place in the early 2000s in an online chat room. The gameplay is entirely comprised of choosing one of 3 dialogue options in a conversation with your friend Emily. There's a year-long time skip between each chapter, leaving you to infer what happened in the gaps, as the game follows your relationship over a long period of time. The real kicker is that the friendship, or budding romance, is not to be, and no series of correct answers can prevent 2 growing people from drifting apart. Life is more complicated than that. The setting and overall presentation is perfect. The difference in sensation between talking to someone in a chat room in reality and doing so in a video game is basically negligible. As a result, it's very easy to buy into Emily as a real person. The lack of music and the lovingly recreated Windows XP UI creates an intimate but also bygone atmosphere that really lends itself to the themes of nostalgic yearning and moving on. I downloaded Emily is Away on but a whim, and came away with an emotion I never would have expected to feel because of a video game. And it only took 40 minutes. It's all too easy to scoff at these indie narrative-based titles for not being real games, but personally, I'm beyond glad I gave Emily is Away a chance, and I'd implore anyone else to do the same. For basically all the same reasons, Emily is Away also takes Best Narrative and Best Atmosphere, which is a shame because I really wanted to give that to Hollow Knight, but what I can give to Hollow Knight is Most Rewarding Award! As I'll no doubt cover later, a number of games had me in their clutches this year. Hollow Knight was the most rewarding of the lot though. I never felt as if just one more attempt was a waste of my time. Hollow Knight's uncompromising difficulty often left me feeling exhausted, but also proud of my accomplishments. The combat is so responsive and the enemies so robust that every fight is truly in the player's hands. The ability to customize your loadout makes for a variety of ways to tackle said enemies. This really makes the victory feel like your victory, achieved through careful planning as well as raw skill. It's About Damn Time Award! This award goes to whichever game I beat in the year that I should have beaten forever ago. This time, it's The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. If you weren't aware, Ocarina of Time is considered one of the most seminal, influential games in the medium's short history. It was one of the first real 3D adventures. Honestly, it probably deserves its own video, so I won't sing its praises for too long. What really makes Ocarina deserving of this award is that I felt a certain connection to the game my whole life. We had it on N64 as children. Zelda games seemed overwhelmingly grand back then, too advanced for little old me, so I watched my brother play through the series and experienced it vicariously through him. You could call me the world's biggest Zelda fan who never actually played it. In recent years, however, I've started making my way through the series, and it feels great to have finally beaten Ocarina of Time myself. Most Disappointing Award! You know, I love Mass Effect. It's one of those pieces of media that left a profound impression on me. One of my loves, so to speak. I feared it might come to this, but I didn't want to believe. Mass Effect Andromeda is easily my most disappointing game of 2017. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't expecting to somehow be able to lick up the last few crumbs of the youthful nostalgia bag and desperately relive the good old days for a few precious seconds! My expectations were actually quite reasonable. Andromeda released to much public ridicule due to its countless technical oddities, but even beyond that, after all the post-launch patches in the world, it's just not a very good game. The overall world building feels undercooked, derivative, and fundamentally undermines its own theming. The pacing is decimated by a quantity over quality approach to content, even more so than in Dragon Age Inquisition before it. Andromeda doesn't seem to know if it's a linear story-focused game or a systems-based exploration game, and if it was trying to be both at the same time, it failed miserably. As a Sonic apologist of all things, you might think I might be more forgiving of Mass Effect Andromeda, but I can't even respect the game as a flawed creative expression. Ultimately, it doesn't feel like anyone on the dev team had any vision for what Andromeda was supposed to be other than the next big Mass Effect RPG, and even light research on the subject confirms the suspicion. That's not to say I didn't occasionally enjoy the game quite a bit, or especially not to say that Cora isn't bae, it just doesn't feel like anyone's vision, and it certainly is an unfortunate misstep in one of my favorite franchises of all time.
Most Impressive Award!
The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. AAA single-player games are at an interesting point right now. The short, tightly paced linear adventure seems to be being replaced by the type of game that emphasizes longevity and maximizing player retention. This isn't always a good thing. With development costs rising, it's becoming even harder to hit that all-important balance between quality and quantity. It's certainly tempting to just coerce the unsuspecting player into wasting their time with grindy unlocks or a deluge of cookie-cutter side quests. I mean, just look at what happened to poor old Mass Effect. Breath of the Wild, however, proves just how good this new era of AAA single-player games has the potential to be. Yes, it's a sprawling open world with hundreds of hours of gameplay, and it achieves this feat in the right way. The player's genuinely unfettered freedom, combined with the meticulously programmed internal logic of the game world, lends itself to all kinds of emergent situations no scripted mission could ever give you. There are so few artificial limits on what you're allowed to do. Everything just makes sense. You can climb anywhere. Your magnetism power works on everything it logically should. So many layers of gamey abstraction are simply absent. At its best, Breath of the Wild feels like your adventure where anything could feasibly happen, and that's a rare feeling. Now that's how you keep players hooked. It's a massive step forward for the modern single-player blockbuster, and what's even more impressive is that the notoriously safe Nintendo were the ones to make it happen. Somehow they tapped into that brilliant ingenuity that exalted them in the first place. Ultimately, I think this game is far from perfect, but the fact that such a recklessly ambitious project could come out so well, helmed by a seemingly irrelevant Nintendo, and be so important to the direction of modern gaming, means Breath of the Wild easily takes the Most Impressive award this year.
Most Addictive Award!
Sonic Mania is so good, man. I beat this game 4 times with all Chaos Emeralds, all Blue Spheres collected, and brother, I don't regret a thing. But I'm giving this award to Zelda. Can't argue with over 100 hours of playtime, man. That's not a normal number for me. 100? Slightly bigger number than 30. I don't even have the DLC, so damn, dude.
And now what you've all been waiting for, the Game of the Year Award.
I would normally split this into the best game I played in 2017 and the best game that actually released in 2017, but this year,
they're the same game!
It's Sonic Mania. Man, I can't tell you how good it feels to be able to say a modern Sonic release is my game of the year. Now, I'm no 2D elitist, but it's plainly obvious unambiguously good Sonic games have been a little scarce. Sonic Generations was, oh my god, 7 years ago now? Man, time flies when you're running fast. And also half your games suck. I was almost going to skip Sonic Mania until a friend convinced me otherwise. I've never been hugely into Sonic's classic era to begin with, and wasn't sure this throwback was for me. But Christian Whitehead and his crack team of fans turned developers knocked it out of the park. This love letter goes all in on the classic Sonic aesthetic. Densely packed psychedelic landscapes, catchy tunes, and dizzying speeds. Together these elements pack enough stimulus to melt your goddamn face off, and the result is a highly engaging, trance-like state of play. On top of that, you're treated to a constant stream of wildly different level themes, gimmicks, and Easter eggs. My god, the Easter eggs. There are so many little details crammed into this game that the dev team's love for Sonic radiates off the screen. Just when you think you've seen it all, Sonic Mania will surprise you again. This tribute to the good old days surpasses them in almost every way, and is now arguably the definitive 2D Sonic experience. Try wrapping your head around that one. 2D Sonic definitely still has a few problems regarding how to teach the player and frustrating cheap shots that I'd like to see addressed, but if they can pull off another effortlessly imaginative heart pounder like this, perhaps one day Sonic will be more than just a punchline, an icon to be embraced again. Well, thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. There's been a lot of praise given today, and not unearned either, but to be honest, I found 2017 to be a bit of a mixed bag in terms of my gaming. Surely that's partly because my personal life was a bit mixed as well, but maybe it's because I spent so long obsessively carrying out minor side quests or beating the same set of 20-minute Sonic levels 4 times! I think I was so impressed with Zelda because I'm so used to having my time blatantly wasted. Ultimately, I only came away with a few new favorites. Sonic, Emily is Away, Tetris, and Doki Doki Literature Club were definitely the standouts. I hope I can find a few more tightly composed darlings in 2018, so I can look at my gaming hours with a bit less confliction. I know there's even plenty of amazing 2017 titles I haven't gotten around to yet, so maybe you'll see Pyre or Nier Automata make it next time? Who knows? Interestingly, none of the aforementioned favorites were games I was particularly hyped for. Maybe there's something to be said about keeping your expectations in check and simply enjoying a piece of media for what it is. And wait, are they making an Age of Empires 4? Oh my god. Oh shit.